I was at the airport waiting to board a flight to attend the inheritance hearing for my late father's estate. Everything felt quiet, normal, until an airport security officer walked straight up to me and said, "Sir, please come with us." They told me there had been a report, that I was considered a potential threat, that someone believed I might do something dangerous at the courthouse. I immediately explained, calmly, clearly, step by step. I told them I was simply traveling to honor my father's final plans, that I hadn't threatened anyone, that this had to be a misunderstanding. The officer studied my face for a long moment without saying a word. Then he turned the screen toward me and said, "This is the person who reported you." I froze when I saw the name. "Before we go any further, thank you for being here. Seriously. If this story resonates with you, take a second to comment where you're watching from anywhere in the world. It helps this channel grow, and it reminds me that none of us are alone in moments like this. And just so you know, some details in this story have been dramatized for education and entertainment. Any similarity to real names or locations is purely coincidental, but the lesson I'm sharing is something I truly believe matters. I need to tell you why I was standing at Portland Airport security at 6:15 in the morning on October 15th, 2024, with my hands shaking from 3 cups of coffee and 0 hours of sleep. My father, Arthur Fletcher, died 3 weeks ago. Heart attack in his sleep, September 24th. He was 82 years old and had spent 60 years building Fletcher Ranch in Montana, 500 acres of cattle land that he worked with his own 2 hands. No loans, no shortcuts, just decades of sunrise to sunset labor that turned raw Montana earth into something worth fighting for. The funeral was small. My son Benjamin showed up, stood in the back, and left without saying a word to me. That was fine. We hadn't been close in years, but yesterday he finally called. Then we need to talk about Grandpa's will. That was it. No, I'm sorry for your loss. No, how are you holding up? Just business. Cold. Transactional. Here's what Benjamin didn't know. I knew 6 months before he died, my father changed his will. The old one split everything 50-50 between me and Benjamin. The new one left everything to me, 100%. The ranch, the house, the cattle, all of it. So this morning, I had a flight to Montana. There was a probate hearing at Park County Courthouse at 10 o'clock sharp. Benjamin's lawyer filed a motion to contest the will. My father's attorney, Philip Garrett, told me I needed to be there in person. No exceptions. I'd done the math 100 times, wheels up at 7 land, at 9:15 drive 45 minutes to the courthouse. Tight, but possible. That's why I was at airport security at 6:15 a.m., placing my bag on the conveyor belt. Inside were my father's letters, 30 years of correspondence carefully organized, his medical records, personal journals, everything I needed to prove he was sound of mind when he made that final decision. I walked through the metal detector, no beep, clean. I reached for my bag on the other side, already calculating my next moves. Gate C7. Maybe grab coffee. Review Philip's notes one more time before. "Excuse me, sir." The voice came from my left. A TSA officer, mid-30s, with the kind of neutral expression that comes from years of dealing with difficult passengers. Officer Collins, according to his badge. His partner, Officer Parker, stood a few feet behind him. Yes. I kept my voice even. 30 years of teaching high school had trained me for moments like this. Stay calm. Don't react. "We need you to come with us, please." My stomach dropped, but I kept my face neutral. "Is there a problem?" "Just some routine questions. This way." Collins gestured toward a door marked, "Security Office, Authorized Personnel Only." Parker picked up my carry-on without asking. The message was clear, this wasn't optional. Stay calm. This is just like dealing with a student who's lying to your face. Don't react. Listen first. They led me down a narrow corridor into a small office. No windows, gray walls, one metal table bolted to the floor with 3 chairs that looked like they'd been there since the 1990s. The air smelled like stale coffee and cleaning solution. Collins motioned for me to sit. I did. Parker set my bag on the table and took up position by the door, not blocking it, but close enough to send a message. "Mr. Fletcher." Collins began pulling out a tablet. "We received a report about you this morning." My heart rate kicked up, but I kept my hands flat on the table. "What kind of report?" Collins glanced at the screen, then back at me. "A phone call came in earlier. Caller identified himself as Benjamin Fletcher. He said he was your son." The room tilted slightly. "Benjamin." "The call came in at 4:47 this morning." Collins continued. His tone was professionally neutral, but his eyes were watching me carefully. "The caller stated that you were traveling today. He expressed concern that you might pose a potential threat to public safety. 4:47 a.m., 2.5 hours before my flight. A threat." The word came out rougher than I intended. "What kind of threat?" Parker shifted his weight by the door. "The caller claimed you'd been acting erratically since your father's recent death. He mentioned an inheritance dispute, said you'd made statements about doing whatever it takes to get what you believe you deserve. Those words, my exact words from yesterday's phone call. I'd said them in frustration, in grief, in the aftermath of losing the man who'd taught me everything about integrity and doing things the right way. I'd meant I would fight legally, through proper channels. Benjamin had turned them into something else. Officers," I said carefully. "I'm a retired high school teacher. I've never been arrested, never been in a fight. My father died 3 weeks ago. There's a probate hearing in Montana this morning. I need to be there." Collins studied me. "And your son, where does he fit into this? He's contesting my father's will. So there is a dispute. A legal one, the kind that happens in courtrooms, not airports." Parker spoke from his position by the door. "Your son sounded genuinely concerned, Mr. Fletcher. He gave us specific details. Your flight time, your destination. He knew exactly what you'd be carrying." Ice water flooded my veins. Benjamin hadn't just called to report a vague concern. He'd given them my entire itinerary. Every detail calculated to make this stop as long and thorough as possible. "Mr. Fletcher," Collins said, "you understand why we have to take this seriously. A family member calls us, says his father might be dangerous, gives us specific travel information. We can't just ignore that." "I understand." My voice sounded hollow. "You're doing your job." What I didn't say. "And my son knew exactly what job you'd do. He knew exactly how long this would take." Collins glanced at his watch. "It's 6:28. When does your flight board?" 6:52. 24 minutes. The hearing started at 10. If I missed this flight, there wasn't another one that would get me there in time. Benjamin's lawyer would argue that I didn't care enough to show up, that my father made a mistake trusting me with his legacy. Collins was still watching me, tablet in hand, waiting for something, an explanation, a reaction. Proof that his son's concern was justified, or proof that it wasn't. I thought about the funeral 3 weeks ago. Benjamin standing at the back of the chapel, arms crossed, face unreadable. How he'd left before I could even try to talk to him. How his truck was already pulling out of the parking lot while I was still shaking hands with neighbors who'd known my father for 40 years. I thought about yesterday's phone call, that flat transactional tone. No grief, no emotion, just, "We need to talk about Grandpa's will." And now this, a call at 4:47 in the morning. 6 minutes and 42 seconds of carefully chosen words. Specific details about my travel plans, about the threats I'd supposedly made, all timed perfectly to keep me in this room while my flight boarded without me. Officer Collins set his tablet on the table between us. The screen was still lit up, showing the call log. "Mr. Fletcher," he said quietly, I'm going to read you exactly what your son told us. Then you can tell me your side." He picked up the tablet and began reading, his voice steady and official. "We received a call this morning at 4:47 a.m. Duration 6 minutes 42 seconds. Caller identified himself as Benjamin Fletcher, age 32, residing in Billings, Montana. He stated that his father, Scott Fletcher, age 58, was traveling from Portland to Montana today. The caller expressed concern that his father had been acting unstable following the recent death of his grandfather. He claimed his father made verbal threats during a phone conversation yesterday, specifically stating he would do whatever it takes to claim an inheritance he believes he deserves." Collins looked up from the screen. The caller also stated that you might be a danger to public safety and requested that we detain you for questioning. The words hung in the air like smoke. My hands went cold on the armrests. Not from fear, not from anger, from the sudden absolute clarity of what was happening. My son, Benjamin, the boy I'd raised, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, to throw a baseball, to stand up for what was right. He'd just called airport security and reported his own father as a threat, not because he believed it, because he knew exactly what it would do. The security office felt smaller with every passing second. Officer Collins sat across from me, a tablet glowing between us like evidence at a trial. Parker stood by the door, arms crossed, studying my face for any crack in composure. I'd spent 30 years teaching teenagers how to lie and how to spot one. I knew the signs: eye contact that lingered too long, defensiveness that arrived too fast, the nervous laugh that came a beat late. So I sat still and kept my breathing even. Collins cleared his throat. "Mr. Fletcher, I'm going to read you the report your son filed. Then we'll ask a few follow-up questions." "I understand." He scrolled and began reading in a flat, official tone. Caller states his father, Scott Fletcher, has been mentally unstable since the death of his grandfather 3 weeks ago. Caller reports statements including, "They won't get away with this, and I'll make sure justice is served." Caller expresses concern that his father may do something dangerous at today's probate hearing. Subject is carrying estate documents. Caller fears subject may destroy evidence if confronted. Collins looked up. The caller also stated you were recently fired from your teaching position. "That's not true," I said calmly. "I retired 2 years ago. Jefferson High School, Northeast Portland. You can verify that." Parker shifted. "People who get fired often say they retired. People who retire have pension statements," I replied, "and a retirement party photo album in their attic. I can give you the principal's number." Collins made a note. "The caller seemed convinced you were a threat to public safety." "The caller," I said carefully, "is my son, and he's contesting a will that leaves him nothing. His definition of threat may be subjective. You're saying he lied. I'm saying he told you a version of events designed to keep me here long enough to miss my flight. That's a serious accusation. So is calling airport security at 4:47 a.m. to report your own father." Collins set the tablet down. "Would you like to hear the actual recording of the call?" I blinked. "You recorded it. All TSA threat calls are recorded. For liability." He hesitated. "Usually we don't play them. I want to hear it." He pressed play. My son's voice filled the room, worried, strained, carefully controlled. "This is hard for me, but I'm concerned about my father's behavior. He's been erratic since my grandfather passed away 3 weeks ago." The operator asked him to explain. "He's making statements like, 'They won't get away with this.' He's flying to Montana today for a probate hearing. He's carrying important estate documents. I'm afraid he might destroy evidence if confronted." "Has your father ever been violent?" A pause, perfectly timed. "Not that I know of, but he's never been this angry before. I don't know what he's capable of." Collins stopped the recording. Silence settled heavy in the room. "Well," Parker said, "that sounds like genuine concern." I stared at the tablet, then at the timestamp. "Can you check if there were any other calls from that number earlier?" Collins frowned. "Why?" "Because people telling the truth call once," I said. "People rehearsing hang up and try again." Parker raised an eyebrow. Collins typed. His expression changed. There were two earlier calls. Same number. Both disconnected. What time? First at 2:30 a.m. 4 seconds. Second at 3:15. 11 seconds. The successful call was 4:47. I leaned back. He practiced. Twice. Parker muttered a curse. Collins was already pulling up my background. You're clean. No arrests, no complaints. 30 years teaching. Retired 2022. Can you verify the hearing, I asked? He made the call. Yes, the clerk confirmed. Scott Fletcher, probate hearing, 10 a.m., Judge Merrick. Collins ended the call. This appears to be deliberate interference with a legal proceeding. That's exactly what it is. He closed the report. I'm marking this unfounded. Here's the incident number. You may need it. Parker stepped aside. Family members weaponizing the system. Seen it before. I checked my watch. 6:44 a.m. 8 minutes to boarding. Thank you, I said. As I left, Collins added quietly, your son's call was convincing. That kind of manipulation takes planning. I know. I ran through the terminal, breath-burning legs light with adrenaline. I reached the gate just as final boarding was announced. The agent scanned my pass, cutting it close. Yes, ma'am. I collapsed into my seat. My hands shook now that the danger had passed. The woman beside me glanced over. You okay? Long morning. She patted my arm. I texted Benjamin, I know what you did at security. 3 dots appeared instantly. I don't know what you're talking about. Have a safe flight, Dad. I read it twice. Plausible deniability. Documented concern. The engines rumbled. The plane pushed back. Relief washed over me. For 90 seconds. Then my phone buzzed. An email squeezed in before airplane mode fully locked. From Philip Garrett. Subject urgent. Hearing moved. Scott Benjamin's attorney filed an emergency motion. Hearing moved to 9 a.m. I'm fighting it. Claiming scheduling conflict. You'll need to get there even faster. No guarantees. Timestamp 6:51 a.m. 1 minute before boarding closed. Benjamin hadn't just tried to stop me at security. He'd planned for failure. The plane was still at the gate when my phone buzzed again. Another email. I stared at the notification, debating whether to open it. Subject flight cancellation confirmation. My heart stopped. I tapped it open, hands shaking. Your reservation for Flight 2847 Portland to Billings departing October 15th at 7 a.m. has been canceled per your request. No, not after everything. Not after security, not after. Excuse me. I flagged down the nearest flight attendant. There's a mistake. My ticket says canceled, but I'm sitting here. She pulled out her tablet, professional smile in place. Name. Scott Fletcher, 18C. Her fingers moved across the screen. Mr. Fletcher, you're on our passenger list. Seat confirmed. You're fine. But this email. Sometimes our system sends duplicate notifications. You're checked in and seated. You're good. I nodded, throat tight. She moved on. I looked at the email again, reading more carefully. Flight 2847. My flight was 1823. Then I saw the name at the top. Confirmation for Benjamin Fletcher. What? A second notification appeared. Different flight. Seattle to Billings, 7:45 a.m. departure. Canceled. Benjamin's flight. I called him before I could think better of it. What? His voice was sharp. To check your email, your flight. Silence. Then typing. What the hell? Who canceled? He stopped. Dad, did you do this? Someone tried to cancel mine too. Got the confirmation codes mixed up. The pause told me everything. You're insane, he said finally. Why would I cancel my own flight? Because you tried to cancel mine first. You mixed up the codes. This is your fault. You're trying to... The line went dead. I sat back, pulse hammering. The woman next to me glanced over her book but said nothing. My phone buzzed a third time. Boston to Billings, 8:30 a.m. departure. Cancelled. Philip, my father's attorney. I called immediately. Scott. Philip's voice was tense. I just got an email. Your flight's cancelled. So is Benjamin's. Someone tried mine too. How did he get our booking codes? Email hack. Social engineering. Does it matter? Can you rebook? One next flight gets me there at 11:30. I'll miss the 9 o'clock hearing. Get on it anyway. I'll handle the morning. Scott, there's something you need to know. Your father put a penalty clause in the will. If Benjamin contests it, he pays all legal fees both sides. About $45,000. I closed my eyes. Why didn't you tell me? And Arthur made me promise. He said you'd try to make peace. He wanted Benjamin to face consequences first. That sounded like Dad. Love with teeth. I have to go, I said. Get on that flight. I hung up and headed toward the cockpit. The flight attendant intercepted me. Sir, we're in pushback. I need 2 minutes. My attorney's flight was just canceled and we've left the gate. Sit down or we'll have to remove you. No choice. I returned to my seat. The plane rolled forward. Through the window, the terminal shrank away. We were really leaving. I pulled up the airline website, found Philip's canceled flight, booked him on the next available 9:15 a.m. departure, used my credit card, hit confirm. The plane turned onto the runway. Engines wound up. We accelerated. The nose lifted. Portland disappeared beneath us. For the first time in 3 hours, I let myself breathe. We'd made it. Despite everything, the TSA report, the flight cancellations, we were airborne. I'd land at 9:15, walk into the hearing a few minutes late, apologize, and my phone buzzed one last time. I looked down. Park County Probate Court Clerk's Office. Timestamp 6:52 a.m. I opened it as we climbed through 10,000 feet. Notice hearing for estate of Arthur Fletcher moved to 8:30 a.m. due to emergency motion filed by interested party. All parties required to appear. Failure to appear may result in default judgment. The words blurred. 8:30 a.m. Not 9, not 10. I'd land at 9:15, 45 minutes late, for a hearing that had been moved twice now, each time earlier, each time tightening the window until there was no window left. My hands went cold on the armrests. Benjamin hadn't just tried to stop me at security with that 4:47 a.m. call. He hadn't just tried to cancel my flight. He'd built a trap with 3 layers: delay me at TSA, cancel my flight, if that failed, and move the hearing time. So even if I made it onto a plane, I'd arrive too late. The flight attendant walked past, doing her pre-flight check. Can I get you anything, sir? No, thank you. She moved on. I stared out the window at the clouds. Somewhere below, in a courthouse in Park County, Montana, my son was probably already there, sitting with his lawyer, waiting, knowing I wouldn't arrive in time. The penalty clause meant Benjamin would owe $45,000 if he lost. But if I didn't show up, if the judge ruled in his favor by default because I wasn't there to defend my father's wishes, Benjamin would inherit everything: the ranch, the land, the legacy Dad had spent 60 years building, and he'd never pay a dime. I pulled out my phone, switched to airplane mode, and opened my father's last letter. The one he'd written 3 days before he died. Scott Fletcher Ranch is more than land. It's everything I believe about how a man should live. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Not even family. Especially not family. The turbulence hit as we passed through 15,000 feet. The plane shook. My coffee cup rattled in its holder. I closed my eyes and thought about the classroom. About the kids who'd tried to cheat on exams by creating elaborate schemes, fake doctor's notes, forged signatures, coordinated alibis. They always had one thing in common. They built their lies in layers, assuming that if one layer failed, the others would hold. But there was always a weak point. Always one detail they hadn't accounted for. One person they'd underestimated. Benjamin had built his trap well. 3 layers. each one more sophisticated than the last. But he'd made one mistake. He'd assumed I'd give up. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Folks, we've hit our cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. Should be smooth sailing from here to Billings. We'll have you on the ground right on schedule at 9:15 a.m. Mountain Time. Devini penkiolika." 45 minutes after the hearing started, I opened my eyes and looked at my phone. At the email from the court clerk. At the words, "Failure to appear may result in default judgment." Then I opened my contacts and scrolled until I found the number I needed. Park County Probate Court. Main line. I typed out a text message to myself, with the number setting a reminder to call the moment we landed. Because Benjamin had made one critical miscalculation. He'd thought this was about the ranch, about the money, about $4 million in land and cattle and 60 years of hard work. But it wasn't. It was about what my father had taught me in that ranch house, in those letters, in 30 years of watching him do the right thing even when it cost him everything. It was about showing up, even when you're late, even when the system is rigged, even when your own son has turned the law into a weapon. You show up anyway. The plane leveled off. The seatbelt sign dinged off. Around me, passengers pulled out laptops and books and settled in for the flight. I leaned back and closed my eyes. Benjamin thought he'd won. But the hearing hadn't started yet, and I wasn't done fighting. 30,000 feet over Idaho, I opened the PDF attachment from the Park County court clerk and felt the floor drop out from under me. Emergency motion to compel immediate hearing. Filed October 15, 2024. 6:30 a.m. Electronic filing petitioner, Benjamin Fletcher. 6:30 in the morning, before the courthouse even opened. He'd filed this while I was still trapped in that TSA security office. I scrolled. Respondent Scott Fletcher has demonstrated financial irresponsibility and mounting debts totaling approximately $200,000, including property liens and bankruptcy filings. Attached documentation establishes a pattern of fiscal mismanagement that calls into question respondent's fitness to manage a $4 million estate. My hands went cold as I opened the attachments. Bankruptcy filings, debt collection notices, property liens, all under the name Scott Fletcher. But the details were wrong. Wrong birthday, wrong middle name, wrong address. Los Angeles, not Montana. A completely different man. But the documents looked official. And unless someone slowed down, unless they checked carefully, they'd assume it was me. I kept reading. Respondent has made threatening statements including, "I'll destroy anyone who gets in my way, and justice will be served no matter what it takes." Respondent was recently terminated from his employment due to instability. Every sentence was a lie. Petitioner respectfully requests the following relief: immediate surrender of all estate documents upon respondent's arrival. Mandatory psychological evaluation prior to further participation. Emergency hearing due to credible risk of document destruction. The new hearing time, 8:30 a.m., finally clicked. Benjamin knew my flight landed at 9:15. He'd timed this so the hearing could begin and possibly end before I even touched the ground. Every piece designed to make me look unstable, dangerous, unfit. And I was trapped inside a metal tube with no Wi-Fi, no signal, no way to respond. The panic rose fast, tight in my chest. Then instinct took over, the same one I'd relied on for 30 years in a classroom. Think. What proof do you have? I opened my carry-on and pulled out my father's documents, letters, decades of correspondence neatly organized. His handwriting grew shakier near the end, but his thinking never did. Medical records from Dr. Robbins. Last appointment 2 weeks before Dad died. Patient alert and oriented. Memory excellent. Discussed estate planning. Demonstrates full mental capacity. And then at the bottom of the stack, the most important item of all. Arthur Fletcher's personal journal. Leather-bound, 40 years old. Written every Sunday evening after church. I flipped to the final entry. December 29th, 2023. 3 days before he died. My father's handwriting was slower now, but still clear. Benjamin called today. He knows I changed the will. Someone from Philip's office must have told him, probably Sharon. She never could keep a secret. He yelled at me for 20 minutes, said I was senile, said Scott was manipulating me. I told him the truth. Benjamin, your father never said a bad word about you to me. You did that yourself. Every time you chose money over family. Every time you asked what I was worth instead of how I was doing. He said, "You're going to regret this," and hung up. I don't think I'll hear from him again. Maybe that's for the best. Some lessons a man has to learn the hard way. I'm at peace with my decision. I read it 3 times. This single entry destroyed Benjamin's entire case. First, Arthur was mentally sound 3 days before his death. Clear reasoning, emotional insight, no confusion, no impairment. Second, Benjamin knew he'd been disinherited before Arthur died and had reacted with threats. There was no mystery, no manipulation, no sudden change, just consequences. I looked out the window at the clouds rushing past. Somewhere below, Montana was getting closer, and in a courthouse in Park County, a hearing was happening without me. I flagged down the flight attendant. "Does this flight have Wi-Fi?" "No, sir." "Is there a phone on board? It's an emergency." She shook her head. "Removed from this fleet years ago." "I'm sorry." Of course. Benjamin had probably checked that too. Checked the aircraft, the route, made sure I'd be completely unreachable. I reopened the emergency motion. Every accusation carefully phrased, plausible, damaging. But he'd made one fatal mistake. He assumed I'd arrive empty-handed. Assumed Philip would bring everything. Assumed I wouldn't have Arthur's own words. I flipped through more journal entries, marking pages with the in-flight magazine cards. March 15th, 2023. Benjamin asked again what the ranch is worth. 3rd time this year. Never asks about the land itself. Only the money. July 4th, 2023. Scott came out today. Fixed the north fence together. Didn't mention the will once. Just wanted time. That's the difference. October 1st, 2023, met with Philip. Changed the will. Scott doesn't know yet. Benjamin will contest it. Some things are worth fighting for. My father had documented everything. Every reason, every choice. It was as if he'd prepared evidence for a trial he knew he wouldn't survive. I pressed my forehead against the cold airplane window. "Dad," I whispered. "I hope you were right about me." The pilot's voice cut in. "We've begun our descent into Billings. Local time is 9:02 a.m. 9:02. The hearing had started 32 minutes ago. I organized my documents carefully. Letters first, medical records next, journal entries flagged and ready. The clouds broke. Montana stretched out below, wide, brown, endless. Somewhere out there was Fletcher Ranch. 500 acres my father had built with his hands. And closer still, a courthouse where my son was trying to erase me. The wheels hit the runway. The plane slowed, taxied. My phone sat dark in my hand. The moment I turned it on, I'd know. Whether the hearing was still open, whether Benjamin had already won. We stopped at the gate. The seatbelt sign stayed on. I turned off airplane mode. The phone exploded with notifications. Philip Garrett. 8:45 a.m. Can't reach you. Hearing started early. I'm still in Boston. You need to call the court now. Unknown number. 8:52 a.m. This is Sharon from Park County Probate Court. Judge Merrick is asking about your location. Benjamin Fletcher. 9:00 a.m. Dad, where are you? Judge is about to rule in my favor due to your absence. Guess you didn't want that ranch after all. The flight attendant was still reminding everyone to stay seated. I stood up anyway. My boots hit the terminal floor at a dead sprint. Passengers scattered. I didn't care. Phone pressed to my ear, I dialed the number Sharon had called from. She answered on the first ring. Park County Probate Court. This is Scott Fletcher, I said, breath tearing out of my lungs as I dodged a family with 3 suitcases. I just landed. I'm here. Mr. Fletcher, her voice dropped. Hold, please. Muffled sounds. A hand over the receiver. She came back. The hearing started at 8:30. Judge Merrick has been asking pointed questions about your absence. I was on a plane. My son filed a false report to keep me at airport security. Can I appear by phone? Judge Merrick usually doesn't allow phone appearances. My son deliberately moved the hearing time after filing false reports. I have documentation. I'm 15 minutes from the courthouse, but the hearing's already 47 minutes in. A pause. Hold on, let me ask him. The line went to hold. I could hear courtroom sounds, papers shifting, a cough, a chair scraping. Then a new voice came on. Deep. Measured. Montana Authority. Mr. Scott Fletcher, are you on the line? Yes, Your Honor. I landed at 9:17. I'm en route to the courthouse right now. Mr. Fletcher, I've spent the last 45 minutes listening to your son's attorney describe you as mentally unstable, financially irresponsible, and potentially dangerous. He claims you were detained by airport security this morning. Care to respond? I burst through the terminal doors into cold Montana air. Your Honor, every statement made this morning is false, and I can prove it. Another voice cut in, smooth, expensive, practiced. Your Honor, Mr. Fletcher is clearly calling from an airport terminal. He missed the scheduled hearing time. This shows blatant disrespect for the court. Counselor Judge Merrick snapped. I'll decide what constitutes disrespect. Mr. Fletcher, continue. I spotted the rental car lot and started running again. At 4:47 a.m., my son Benjamin called airport security and filed a false report claiming I was a threat to public safety. I was detained, investigated, and fully cleared. I have the incident report number. Then someone using my personal information attempted to cancel my flight, my son's flight, and my father's estate attorney's flight within a 20-minute window. And shortly after that, the hearing was moved up 90 minutes based on an emergency that did not exist. Silence. Then the judge spoke again. Mr. Mitchell, did your client mention filing a police report against his father this morning? The lawyer hesitated. Your Honor, I need to confer with my client. I imagine you do. Benjamin Fletcher, please stand. A younger voice came through, thinner now. Yes, Your Honor. Did you call airport security at 4:47 this morning and file a report against your father? I was concerned for public safety, son. The judge's tone shifted, not softer but heavier. I knew your grandfather for 30 years. Arthur Fletcher could be stubborn, difficult, and hard as stone, but he raised his son to be honest. Your father is telling me the truth. You are sitting in my courtroom twisting it. He paused. So tell me, Benjamin Fletcher, which one of you deserves that ranch? Silence answered. I reached the rental counter. The agent took one look at my face and started typing faster. Name, she whispered. Fletcher, Scott Fletcher. She slid the keys across. Bay 14, Silver Tahoe. I nodded and moved on, phone still to my ear. Judge Merrick continued. Mr. Fletcher, send the incident report number to my clerk. Mr. Mitchell, you have 1 hour to get your facts straight. And Benjamin Fletcher, if I learn you filed one more false report, canceled one more flight, or attempted one more stunt to interfere with this court, I will hold you in contempt. You will see the inside of Park County Jail before you see that ranch. Clear. A barely audible response, yes, Your Honor. Court is in recess. We reconvene at 10:30 when Mr. Fletcher arrives. Counselor, use that hour wisely. The line went dead. I found the Tahoe, threw my bag in the back, and started the engine. My hands were steady for the first time since 3 a.m. I texted Sharon the TSA incident number PDX-TSA-241015-0447. She replied instantly. Got it. Judge expects you at 10:30. Drive safe. I pulled out of the lot and onto the highway. Downtown Billings ahead. 15 minutes, maybe 12 if traffic stayed light. Morning sun lit the Montana landscape, brown grass, distant mountains, endless sky. Big sky country, just like Dad always said. Judge Merrick's words echoed in my head. I knew your grandfather for 30 years. Of course he did. Dad went to First Methodist every Sunday. Same pew for decades. Coffee afterward. Cattle prices, weather, quiet handshakes. That was the thing Benjamin never understood. In small towns, justice isn't only about statutes. It's about reputation, about who you are when no one's watching. Dad had built that reputation over 60 years, one honest day at a time. Benjamin tried to tear it down in one morning with lies. But Judge Merrick had known Arthur Fletcher, truly known him, and that mattered. I merged onto I-90 toward the courthouse. The GPS read 14 minutes. My phone buzzed. Philip heard you were patched through. Well done. Boarding now. Call me after recess. Another buzz. Unknown number. This is Kevin from Portland Airport. I filed my report about the flight cancellation attempts. Thought you should know. Good luck. People were helping. Strangers who saw what Benjamin tried to do and chose not to look away. That mattered too. I passed the exit for Fletcher Ranch, 12 miles south. I could almost picture it, the house Dad built, the land he worked, the legacy he trusted me to protect. Soon. But first the courthouse. The GPS recalculated 11 minutes. I pressed the accelerator. The Tahoe surged smoothly. Round one was mine. No ruling yet, but the tone had shifted. The contempt warning was real. The recess gave me time to arrive with everything my father had left behind. Still a knot settled in my gut. Benjamin had tried airport security, flight cancellations, a rushed hearing. 3 systems weaponized. What would he try next? The courthouse appeared ahead. Old brick flags, flying parking lot half full. 10 minutes. Whatever Benjamin planned for round 2, I'd face it with my father's letters in my hands and his words in my heart. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Not even family. Especially not family. I pulled into the courthouse parking lot at 10:19 a.m., 11 minutes early. The Park County Courthouse parking lot stretched out before me half empty at 10:18 a.m. I scanned the vehicles and spotted them immediately. Benjamin and Amanda standing beside a black Mercedes SUV that probably cost more than 2 years of my teaching salary. Amanda saw me first. Her hand shot out, gripping Benjamin's arm. Even from 30 feet away, I could read her lips. Don't. Wait for Conrad. Benjamin shook her off and started walking toward me. Purpose in every step. I got out of the Tahoe and closed the door. Father and son, facing each other in a Montana parking lot, 10 feet apart. You turned the judge against me. Benjamin's voice was tight. Controlled anger barely held in check. I told the truth. You lied. No, that ranch should be mine. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. Grandpa promised me when I was 8 years old. We walked the property line together. He said, "Someday, Benjamin, all of this will be yours." My chest tightened. I remembered Arthur saying those things to an 8-year-old boy on summer vacation. Stories, not legal contracts. And you were 8, Benjamin. He was telling stories to a child. He never made you a legally binding promise. He spent every summer teaching me how to run that ranch. Not you. You were too busy with your books and your students. I was the one who understood that land. I was the one who knew it. You haven't set foot on that ranch in 5 years. Because Grandpa turned into someone I didn't recognize. Benjamin's voice cracked. A bitter, mean old man who cut me out for no reason. No reason. The words came out harder than I intended. You called him twice a year, Benjamin. Christmas and when you needed money. I visited once a month. Every single month. For 5 years, Benjamin stepped closer. The anger shifted to something more desperate. You poisoned him against me. You were up there every month, whispering in his ear, making him think I didn't care. I never said a bad word about you. Never. I didn't have to. Your absence said it all. His jaw clenched. I was building a career, trying to make something of myself, trying to make him proud. He didn't want you to make him proud from 1,000 miles away. My voice softened slightly. He wanted you to call, to visit, to care about him as a person, not as an asset waiting to be inherited. Silence. Wind blew across the parking lot. Somewhere nearby, a car door slammed. Then Benjamin's voice dropped, almost breaking. You want to know why I need that ranch? The real reason I waited, because I'm drowning Dad. His eyes were wet now. I owe money to people, bad people, the kind who will hurt me if I don't pay. My breath caught. What kind of... And Amanda's pregnant. The world stopped. What? 8 weeks. His voice shook. We haven't told anyone yet. We were waiting, but I need that ranch, Dad. I need to sell it so we can start over. So my kid doesn't grow up with a father who's a complete failure. So Amanda doesn't have to be scared every time the phone rings. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Saw the dark circles under his eyes. The weight loss. The desperation that wasn't just greed. And you think lying, manipulating, using police and courts against your own father, that's the man you want your child to know. It's the only way I know how to survive. That's not surviving. That's drowning while screaming. His face hardened again. The vulnerability disappeared. Easy for you to say. You're about to inherit $4 million. Grandpa would have given you that money if you'd asked him honestly, if you'd been truthful. If you'd said, Grandpa, I'm in trouble and I need help. He would have said no. He thought I was weak. He thought you were lost. There's a difference. Benjamin's voice trembled. Yeah, well, maybe I am. Maybe I'm exactly what he thought. The screw-up grandson who disappoints everyone. I reached out. Benjamin, he stepped back. Don't. Save it for the judge. I'll see you in there. He walked back toward Amanda, who was crying silently beside the Mercedes. She called out to me, voice breaking, I'm sorry. We're so desperate. I stood there as they disappeared into the courthouse. The Montana sun was bright but cold. I thought about the baby, my grandchild, growing inside Amanda while Benjamin tore this family apart. And I thought about Arthur's last words to me, the ones I'd read in his journal 3 nights before he died. Scott, whatever happens with Benjamin, remember this, sometimes the only way to save someone is to let them hit bottom. It's the hardest thing a father can do. But some lessons can't be taught. They have to be survived. I pulled Arthur's journal from my bag and started walking toward the courthouse. The hearing would start in 12 minutes. Benjamin thought this was about the ranch. About $4 million in land and cattle and 60 years of work. But it was bigger than that now. It was about showing my son before he became a father himself that there were consequences to lies. That manipulation had costs. That the easy path never led anywhere worth going. It was about teaching him the same lesson Arthur had spent 60 years trying to teach me. Integrity isn't what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when everything is falling apart, and the easy lie is right there waiting. I reached the courthouse steps, the same brick building Arthur had walked into 100 times over the years. For permits, for property disputes, for voting, always honest, always direct, sometimes difficult, but never dishonest. I pulled open the heavy door and stepped inside. The lobby was cool and quiet. Old tile floors, high ceilings. A directory on the wall pointed toward Courtroom B. By 10:35 a.m., Courtroom B was packed. The 1-hour recess was over. I sat at the petitioner's table beside an empty chair, Philip Garrett's chair. His plane had landed, but he was still 20 minutes out. Across the aisle, Benjamin sat with Conrad Mitchell. Both wore dark, expensive suits. Benjamin's face was carefully blank, but I could see his leg bouncing under the table. Nervous energy he couldn't quite hide. The gallery held maybe 15 people, local ranchers who'd known Dad. A few courthouse regulars who showed up for anything interesting. Sharon the clerk was setting up the recording equipment. The door to the judge's chambers opened. Everyone stood, Judge Merrick walked to the bench, black robe swishing. He settled into his chair and looked out over the courtroom with the kind of expression that said he'd seen every trick in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. "Be seated. Court is in session. The matter of the estate of Arthur Fletcher, deceased." He paused, letting the words settle. "We've had an unusual recess this morning. Let me explain why." Mr. Scott Fletcher appeared by telephone at 9:30 a.m. after his flight landed. He provided evidence showing his delay was due to obstruction. I've reviewed that evidence. We're now proceeding with all parties present. Conrad Mitchell started to rise. "Your Honor, if I might—" "No, you might not. You'll have your turn, Counselor. First, I want to set some ground rules." Judge Merrick leaned forward. "This is a probate court. We're here to determine whether Arthur Fletcher's will dated December 27th, 2023 is valid. We're not here for theater. We're here for truth." Conrad nodded and sat back down. "Mr. Mitchell, you filed an emergency motion this morning. Make your case." Conrad stood buttoning his suit jacket. He was good, I'd give him that. Smooth, confident. The kind of lawyer who charged $500 an hour and made it look effortless. "Your Honor, my client Benjamin Fletcher contests his grandfather's will on 4 grounds." He clicked a remote. A screen behind him lit up with bullet points. First, Arthur Fletcher suffered from cognitive decline in his final months. He lacked the mental capacity to execute a valid will. Second, the timing of the will change is suspicious. Mr. Fletcher disinherited his grandson only 6 months before his death. Third, Scott Fletcher exerted undue influence over his father, isolating him from family and manipulating him. Fourth, Arthur Fletcher was on medication, confused, and made statements indicating cognitive impairment. Conrad gestured toward the witness chair. "Your Honor, I'd like to call Dr. Gerald Reeves to address the medical aspects." A man in his 50s stood from the gallery. Slightly rumpled suit, thinning hair, the kind of expert witness you could rent for the afternoon if you knew where to look. Dr. Reeves was sworn in. Conrad walked him through his credentials: medical degree, 30 years of practice, specialization in geriatric care. "Dr. Reeves, have you reviewed Arthur Fletcher's medical records?" Yes. Based on those records, Mr. Fletcher showed signs consistent with age-related cognitive decline. Memory loss, confusion, susceptibility to influence. Judge Merrick interrupted. "Doctor, did you ever personally examine Arthur Fletcher?" Dr. Reeves blinked. "No, Your Honor, but the records." "So you never met him, never spoke to him, never assessed him directly?" "That's correct, but based on the documentation..." Noted. "Anything else, Mr. Mitchell?" Conrad moved on quickly. "Your Honor, consider the timeline. Will changed December 27th. Death on January 12th. Less than 3 weeks. Classic sign of undue influence, last-minute changes when someone is vulnerable. And during that time," Conrad continued, "Scott Fletcher was the primary, in fact, the only regular visitor. He had access, opportunity, motive." Judge Merrick turned toward my table, toward the empty chair beside me. The courtroom door opened. Philip Garrett rushed in, slightly out of breath, briefcase in hand. He set it down at our table with a soft thud. "My apologies, Your Honor. Flight delay." Judge Merrick's expression softened slightly. "Welcome, Mr. Garrett. I assume you're prepared?" "Yes, Your Honor." Philip straightened his tie. "And I have evidence that will conclusively establish Mr. Fletcher's testamentary capacity." "Proceed." Philip stood addressing the court with the confidence of someone who'd been practicing law longer than Conrad had been alive. "Your Honor, Arthur Fletcher was my client for 35 years. I knew him when I was fresh out of law school. I can state with absolute certainty he was mentally sound until his final day. But I don't need to rely solely on my testimony. Arthur left us something better. He left us his own words." Philip opened his briefcase and pulled out 3 leather-bound journals, the kind with ribbon bookmarks. The kind Dad had kept on his desk for 40 years, writing in them every Sunday evening after church. Conrad shot to his feet. Your Honor, that's hearsay. Exception under Federal Rules of Evidence 803-5 recorded recollection, Philip said smoothly. Coincidental. Additionally, these journals establish the deceased's state of mind at the time the will was executed, which is directly relevant to testamentary capacity. Judge Merrick nodded slowly. I'll allow it. These are contemporaneous records kept by the deceased over 40 years. They're clearly probative. Objection overruled. A murmur ran through the gallery. Everyone in Montana knew Arthur kept journals. It was part of who he was. Sunday evenings after church, before dinner, he'd sit at his desk and write. Benjamin shifted in his chair. I could see the discomfort on his face. He knew what was in those journals. Or at least he knew enough to be worried. Philip held up the journals for the court to see. Your Honor, I'm going to read selected passages from Arthur Fletcher's final year. They tell a story about a man who watched his grandson drift away and made a decision about his legacy. He opened the first journal pages marked with sticky notes. The courtroom went absolutely silent. Even Sharon stopped typing. Philip's voice filled the courtroom, reading Arthur's careful handwriting. The old rancher's character came through in every word, direct, honest, and precise. Call March 15, 2024. 6 months before Arthur's death. He adjusted his reading glasses and began. Scott came up today, helped me fix the fence in the north pasture. I didn't ask him to, he just showed up at 6 a.m. with tools and coffee. We worked in comfortable silence. That's how I know he's my son. We don't need words to understand each other. Some people need to talk constantly. We just need to work side by side. Benjamin used to be like that when he was small. I don't know where that little boy went. I closed my eyes briefly. Across the aisle, Benjamin stared down at the table. Philip turned a page. July 3, 2024. Benjamin's birthday. 3 months before Arthur's death. Called Benjamin this morning to wish him happy birthday. 32 years old. Got voicemail. Called back at noon. Again at 7 p.m. Finally got a text at 9 p.m. Sorry, Grandpa, super busy with work. Work. Always work. Scott tells me not to take it personally that Benjamin is building a career. But when you're 81, you start counting how many birthdays you have left. And you notice who shows up and who doesn't. A few people in the gallery shook their heads. Some of them had known Dad. They remembered him talking about this. Philip flipped to another marked page. December 26, 2023. The day after Christmas. 9 months before Arthur's death. The courtroom leaned forward. This was the one. Benjamin left this morning. Came up for Christmas Day, gone by the 26th. Didn't even finish his coffee. Said he wanted to beat the traffic. 2. We sat at the kitchen table maybe 20 minutes before he said, Grandpa, I need to talk to you about something. I have an investment opportunity, can't lose, but I need $50,000 to get in. Might I ask what kind of investment? He said it was complicated and technical. I asked who else was involved. He said it was insider information. I've run a business for 60 years. I know what those words mean. They mean it's a bad idea, and he knows it. And I said no. I said, Benjamin, if you need money because you're in trouble, tell me the truth. We'll work through it together. But I'm not funding some mystery investment scheme. He said, Grandpa, you're sitting on millions of dollars of land. What are you going to do with it? You're going to die soon anyway. The courtroom went absolutely still. That was the moment I knew. That exact moment. My grandson didn't see me as a person. He saw me as a bank account with a heartbeat. He was just waiting for me to die so he could cash out. I told him to leave. He left. Didn't even say goodbye properly. Benjamin's face had gone white. Amanda put her hand on his arm, tears streaming down her face. Philip continued, his voice steady. I'm going to change my will tomorrow. I don't want to, but I have to. If I give this ranch to Benjamin, he'll sell it before my body is cold. He'll burn through the money in 5 years and have nothing left. No lessons learned, no character built, just zero. See, Scott will understand. Scott always understood me. The silence was absolute. A few of the locals were crying openly. Judge Merrick removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. I clenched my jaw. I'd never known this had happened. Benjamin had never told me about Christmas 2023, about asking for $50,000, about what he'd said to our father. Philip let the silence sit for a moment, then turned another page. The April 15th, 2024, the day Arthur changed his will, 5 months before his death. Went to Philip's office today, changed the will. Hardest thing I've done since burying my wife, but I know it's right. Ma, Benjamin will hate me for this. Maybe forever. I accept that, because I'm doing this out of love. Strange kind of love, maybe, but love nonetheless. If I give him $4 million right now, he'll destroy himself with it. He'll never learn, never grow. But if Scott gets it, I know what will happen. Scott will give Benjamin a way back. That's who my son is. He never gives up on anyone, even when they've given up on themselves. My throat tightened. That was Dad. Always seeing the best version of who you could be, even when you couldn't see it yourself. Philip turned to the final marked page. His voice dropped slightly. It's the April 18th, 2024. 3 days after the will was changed. 5 months before Arthur died. Benjamin called this afternoon. He knows. Someone told him I changed the will. Probably Sharon at Philip's office. She never could keep her mouth shut. He called me a senile old man. Said I was being manipulated by Dad, and everyone knows Scott poisoned me against him. I told him, Benjamin, your father never said a bad word about you. Not one. You did this to yourself. Every time you chose money over family. Every time you asked me what I was worth instead of how I was doing. Every time you only called when you needed something. He screamed into the phone. Said, you're going to regret this. You're going to die knowing you destroyed this family. I said, I'll die knowing I tried to save you from yourself. That's enough. He hung up. I don't think I'll hear from him again. Maybe that's for the best. I'm at peace with this decision. Some lessons a man has to learn the hard way. Maybe losing this ranch will teach Benjamin what owning it never could. Philip closed the journal carefully. The courtroom was silent except for someone crying in the gallery. Judge Merrick looked at Benjamin for a long moment. Then, Benjamin Fletcher, did you or did you not threaten your grandfather 3 days after he changed his will? Benjamin's voice was barely audible. I was angry. I didn't mean... Did you tell your grandfather that he would die knowing he destroyed the family? I was upset I wasn't thinking. Judge Merrick's voice went cold. Sounds like a threat to me. Your grandfather died 5 months later. Of a sudden heart attack. And now you're in my courtroom, trying to overturn the very will you threatened him about. The implication hung in the air. Not that Benjamin had caused the heart attack. 5 months was too long for that. But that he'd made threats, waited for Arthur to die, and immediately moved to contest the will he'd been cut out of. Exactly what Arthur had predicted. Conrad Mitchell stood quickly. Your Honor, my client's emotional reaction to family conflict doesn't invalidate... Counselor. Judge Merrick held up one hand. I've heard enough for now. We're going to take a 15-minute recess. When we come back, I want to hear from Mr. Scott Fletcher directly, because so far all the evidence shows a grandfather who was mentally sound, a grandson who made threats when he didn't get what he wanted, and a son who showed up every month for 5 years without asking for a dime. He banged the gavel once. 15 minutes. Everyone stood as the judge left the bench. The moment he was gone, the courtroom erupted in whispers. I sat there, Arthur's words still echoing in my head. Scott will give Benjamin a way back. That's who my son is. Dad had known me better than I knew myself. Even in death, he was still teaching me. When the 15 minutes ended, Judge Merrick returned to the bench. The courtroom fell silent. He placed the gavel down without striking it, leaned back, and surveyed both sides of the room. "I've practiced law in Montana for 38 years, he began calmly. "I've handled probate cases for over 2 decades. I've seen families destroyed over money and land, but I rarely see a case this clear." Conrad began to rise. Judge Merrick lifted a finger. "Don't, counselor." Conrad sat. "Arthur Fletcher kept journals for 40 years. We've reviewed entries from his final 9 months. They establish 3 facts beyond doubt. 1. Arthur Fletcher possessed full testamentary capacity. His memory, reasoning, and judgment were intact. 2. The change to his will was not suspicious. It was a direct response to a specific incident, the Christmas visit, where Benjamin Fletcher demanded $50,000 and remarked that his grandfather was dying soon anyway. 3. There was no undue influence. Scott Fletcher never requested inheritance. He simply showed up and worked. Judge Merrick turned to Benjamin. "Your grandfather didn't remove you because he was confused. He did it because he loved you. He stated that clearly. He wanted you to learn something. Whether you do is your choice." Benjamin stared at the table. Amanda clutched his hand. "The will dated April 15th, 2024 is valid." Conrad opened his mouth. Judge Merrick raised his hand. "I'm not finished. The entirety of Arthur Fletcher's estate, including Fletcher Ranch, passes to Scott Fletcher." The gallery murmured. "Benjamin Fletcher's contest is denied." Conrad slumped. "Now the penalty clause." Benjamin looked up. "Mr. Fletcher, did you read the will before contesting it?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Then you saw Section 7, subsection 3. Any beneficiary who contests this will without just cause assumes responsibility for all legal fees." Benjamin's face drained of color. Philip stood. "Preliminary accounting places total fees at approximately $45,000. Benjamin Fletcher, you are ordered to pay $45,000 in legal fees." Amanda gasped. "I don't have." "That is not the court's concern. Court is adjourned." The gavel struck. Final judgment. People filed out. I remained seated, watching Benjamin's shoulders sag. Outside, Philip exhaled. "That went as well as possible. The judge saw through everything." "I don't feel like I won," I said. "I just ruined my son financially. He did that himself." Arthur anticipated this. The clause existed for a reason. My phone rang. "Mr. Fletcher, Carol Hendricks from First Montana Bank." "Yes. There was a situation this morning, flagged by fraud." My stomach dropped. "What kind o'?" "An attempt to withdraw $85,000 from the ranch account at 8:45. The account was frozen pending probate." "Who attempted it?" "Benjamin Fletcher. He presented Arthur's ATM card and claimed power of attorney." I closed my eyes. Power of attorney ends at death. Those accounts should be frozen. Yes. However, at 7:15, we received a call from someone claiming to be you. They provided your social security number, date of birth, and a probate case number. They requested the freeze be lifted. Identity theft. On top of everything else. That wasn't me. I was on a plane. We confirmed that. When Mr. Fletcher arrived, the withdrawal exceeded limits. He became agitated and threatened staff. Police were called. Where is he now? Park County Jail. Arrested for attempted bank fraud and disorderly conduct. I stood on the courthouse steps, phone still in my hand. Philip understood immediately. "Don't go there, Scott. Let him sit." But I was already walking. "He's my son. He tried to steal from you. From your father." "I know. I got into the Tahoe. The jail was 12 minutes away. Philip texted Arthur would want him to hit bottom. I remembered Dad's words, some lessons a man has to learn the hard way. Maybe I should let him sit. Let the charges stand. Let him feel the weight. But I thought of Amanda. 8 weeks pregnant. Crying in court. I thought of the grandchild I hadn't met. And I remembered Dad's line, "Scott will give Benjamin a way back." I pulled onto the road. The courthouse victory felt hollow. Across town, my son sat in a cell. Even if leaving him there was smarter, even if it was what Dad planned, the Montana land passed by. The same land Dad had trusted me to protect. But protecting land wasn't enough. I had to protect the family too, even the parts trying to destroy themselves. Park County Jail was a low concrete building behind the courthouse. I'd never set foot in it in my life. The officer at the front desk recognized me from this morning's hearing. Small-town news travels fast. Here to see Benjamin Fletcher. Yes. Visiting rooms through there. 15 minutes. I walked down a narrow hallway that smelled like disinfectant and bad coffee. The visiting room was exactly what you'd expect: reinforced glass partition telephone handsets, industrial gray walls. Benjamin was let in wearing an orange jumpsuit. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed. We both picked up our phones at the same time. Come to gloat. Come to understand. Help me understand this, Benjamin. He laughed bitterly. What's to understand? You won. I lost. Story of my whole goddamn life. That's not... It is, Dad. His voice rose. Everything I do, you do better. You're the better son, better teacher, better husband, better person. Mom loved you more. Grandpa loved you more. I'm just the screw-up grandson who can't do anything right. The pain in his voice was real, raw. Your mom loved you fiercely, every single day until she died. When I was little, before I grew up and disappointed everyone. You didn't disappoint us. You disappointed yourself. What's the difference? Silence stretched between us. I changed tactics. Benjamin, when did you start gambling? He flinched like I'd hit him. How did you pay that debt? $180,000 doesn't come from bad investments or bad luck. That's an addiction. The silence went longer. Benjamin looked down at the metal shelf. After Mom died, I waited, started at work. Friday night poker games with guys from the office, just for fun. Then I found online poker. Could play at 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. Then bigger games. Casinos when I traveled for work. Sports betting, crypto gambling. I kept thinking I'd win it back. Kept thinking the next hand, next game, next bet would be the one that changed everything. But it never was. Why didn't you tell me? He looked up, and I saw tears. Because you'd already lost Mom. You were drowning in grief. I couldn't be another burden you had to save. So I handled it myself. But I didn't handle it. I made it worse, so much worse. The people you owe money to. Who are they? Benjamin hesitated. Loan sharks? Amanda's... It's complicated. I filed that away. And the bank account, Grandpa's ATM card. I wasn't stealing. I was taking what should have been mine. That will was wrong. Grandpa wasn't in his right mind. Stop. Don't do that. You heard those journals today. He was completely sound. Then he was wrong about me. Or you're proving him right. The words hit hard. Benjamin closed his eyes. What do you want, Benjamin, really want? I want to wake up and have the last 10 years back. I want to not owe money to people who'll hurt my wife. I want to not be sitting in a jail cell with my father on the other side of this glass. I want my child to not have a criminal for a father. You're not a criminal. Benjamin opened his eyes. I tried to withdraw money from a dead man's account using a stolen ATM card and false identity. What do you call that? I didn't have an answer for that. The officer knocked. 2 minutes. Benjamin, listen to me. I'm not going to press charges for anything you did to me. The attempted break-in, the lies, the false police report, none of it. Benjamin looked up shocked. The bank will absolutely press charges for the fraud attempt. I can't stop that. But I won't pile on. And I'll pay whatever legal costs come from this. Why? So because I failed you too. After your mom died, I shut down. I was there physically, but not emotionally. You were 28 trying to process losing your mother, and I wasn't there for you the way I should have been. Maybe if I had been, you wouldn't be here. Don't make excuses for me. Shout, I'm not. You made your choices, but I made mine too, and we both need to own them. The officer, time's up. I stood but didn't hang up the phone yet. One more thing. Grandpa's will has that penalty clause. You owe $45,000 in legal fees. Benjamin closed his eyes. I know. I'm going to pay it. His eyes flew open. On one condition. You go to Gamblers Anonymous. You get real help. And you work at the ranch for 1 year. Not as my son, as an employee. $15 an hour. Room and board included. You'll pay back every dollar of that $45,000 through labor. And you'll learn what Grandpa tried to teach you, the value of work. The value of building something instead of looking for shortcuts. Benjamin stared at me. Why would you do that? Because your child, my grandchild, deserves a better father than either of us managed to be. I hung up the phone. Benjamin sat on the other side of the glass, tears streaming down his face. When I walked out of the jail into the Montana afternoon, I thought about Dad's final journal entry. Scott will give Benjamin a way back. That's who my son is. He'd been right, but whether Benjamin would walk that path, that was still an open question. The sun was starting to drop toward the western mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I had one more stop to make before dark, the ranch, Dad's house, where all of this began. I drove through the ranch gate at sunset. The wooden arch overhead read, Fletcher Ranch, established 1978. The year Arthur bought this land with money from selling his father's machine shop. 46 years of sweat cattle and Montana wind. The house sat dark against the mountains. I used my childhood key brass, worn smooth, older than Benjamin. It still worked. Inside the house smelled like Dad. Leather from his old recliner. Coffee from his morning ritual. Wood smoke from the fireplace he'd used every winter night. Everything was exactly as he'd left it. Cup in the sink. Reading glasses on the bedside table. Boots by the door. I walked through the rooms, memories everywhere. Living room, a photo of me at 8 years old, sitting on a hoarse, gap-toothed grin. Kitchen, a photo of Benjamin as a toddler feeding chickens, laughing. Mantle Arthur with his prize bull, 1985. I made my way to Dad's office. Roll-top desk, filing cabinets, shelves full of ranch journals going back decades. I sat in his chair. The leather creaked exactly the way it used to. Opened the desk drawer. More journals from years past, organized by date. I picked one at random, 1987. Flipped to May 15, 1987. Scott graduated high school today. Valedictorian. Full scholarship to State University. They gave him some award for academic excellence. I can't even pronounce half the words on it. I never finished high school myself. Dropped out junior year to help Dad with the machine shop. I can't write these journals without making mistakes, but somehow I raised a son who reads philosophy for fun. I don't know how that happened. Pride doesn't begin to cover what I feel. I sat there, tears running down my face. I'd never known Dad felt inadequate about his education. Never knew he'd struggled with that. Glass shattered somewhere at the back of the house. I froze. Someone was here. I grabbed the flashlight from the desk drawer, the same one Arthur had kept there for 40 years. Moved quietly toward the sound. Back bedroom. Benjamin's childhood summer room. The window was broken shards, everywhere cold Montana night air rushing in. A figure was climbing through. Benjamin, hand bleeding from the glass. I turned on the light. Jesus, Benjamin, what are you? His eyes were wild when he saw me. Get away from that desk. He shoved past me, running for the office. Started tearing through drawers frantically. Where are they? The journals. I need the journals. What are you doing? You're supposed to be in jail. Posted bail. Amanda's parents paid. Doesn't matter. still searching, throwing papers everywhere. Benjamin, stop. I can't. Don't you see those journals destroyed me today? If they don't exist, if there's no evidence, I understood. He thought he could destroy evidence, somehow overturn the ruling. Benjamin found them. 40 years of leather-bound books on the shelf. Grabbed an armful, headed for the living room fireplace. I blocked the doorway. You're going to burn your grandfather's words. They're lies. He was a bitter old man, and he wrote the truth, and you know it. I can't let you have this ranch. I can't. If you have it, I have nothing. My child will grow up with a total failure for a father. Don't you understand? Burning Grandpa's journals won't change anything. The ruling is final. The will is valid. And Philip has copies of everything. Benjamin dropped the journals like they'd burned him, collapsed right there on the office floor, started sobbing, broken, choking sounds. I killed him. I killed Grandpa. What? That phone call, April 18th. I told him he'd regret cutting me out. I told him. He couldn't continue. I knelt beside him. Benjamin. I told him I hoped he'd die knowing he destroyed our family. Those were the last words I said to him. And 5 months later, he died. Complete breakdown. What kind of person says that to their grandfather? A person who was hurt, who was scared. A monster. You're not a monster, you're just lost. We sat on the floor of Arthur's office, journals scattered around us, glass from the broken window glittering in the moonlight. The Montana night was cold and quiet. I pulled a journal toward us. You want to know what kind of person you are? Read what Grandpa actually wrote about you. Not the April entries, the whole story. I opened a journal from 1999, found the entry, pushed it toward Benjamin. Read it, I said. Read who you used to be, and maybe you'll remember how to get back there. Benjamin, hands shaking, picked up the journal and began to read. I made coffee in Arthur's kitchen while Benjamin sat at the desk reading. Past midnight. Neither of us had eaten. This felt more important than food. When I returned with 2 mugs, Benjamin was crying silently. He read aloud, voice breaking. Benjamin helped me deliver a calf tonight. Difficult birth, I thought we'd lose both. Benjamin held the lantern for 3 hours. Not one complaint. No fear despite the blood and pain. Afterward, at 2 a.m., the boy asked, Grandpa, does this ever get easier watching them struggle? I told him, no, but you learn that struggle is part of life. The trick is knowing when to help and when to let them find their own strength. He thought a long time, then said, I think people are like that too. Sometimes they need help, sometimes they need to struggle alone. Smart kid, smarter than I was at his age. He's going to be okay. Benjamin set the journal down. I remember that night. I thought the calf would die, but it didn't. No, it didn't. He turned pages, moving through years. Benjamin at 15. Benjamin wants to be an investment banker, make lots of money. I asked what he'd do with it. He couldn't answer. I said, Son, money is just a tool. What are you building with it? He looked confused. Time will tell, Benjamin whispered. I never figured it out. Benjamin, at 22, bringing Amanda to the ranch. Benjamin brought a girl today. Amanda, pretty sharp, but something made me uneasy. She spent the visit taking photos, asking about property values, acreage worth. Never asked about me. Just what's it worth? Benjamin is smitten. I'm worried. You can't tell a young man about the woman he loves. I just hope the price isn't too high. Benjamin looked up pale. He saw through her from day one. Grandpa saw through everyone. Cattle don't lie about what they want. Benjamin continued reading, seeing himself become distant, fewer visits, shorter calls, always asking for something. Then he found it. December 28, 2023. The day after Arthur changed the will. Benjamin read slowly. Changed the will today. Hardest thing since burying Margaret in 2008. Drove to Philip's office, signed papers, drove home. Sat in this office 3 hours just staring at the wall. Benjamin will hate me. Maybe forever. But I'm doing this because I love him, not despite it. If I give him this ranch now, he'll sell it within a year. Burn through $4 million in 5 years and have nothing. No lessons learned, no growth. Just debt and regret. But if Scott gets it, I know what will happen. Scott will give Benjamin a way back. That's who my son is. He never gives up on anyone, even when they've given up on themselves. He'll make Benjamin work for it. Earn it. Learn what I should have taught him. Value comes from what you build, not what you inherit. Benjamin will choose the easy road of resentment or the hard road of redemption. I'm betting on the hard road, because deep down he's still that 9-year-old holding a lantern steady while a calf struggled to be born. He just forgot. Maybe losing this ranch will help him remember. Benjamin's hands trembled. Tears streamed down his face. "Chico, he bet on you," I said quietly. "The will wasn't punishment. It was faith. He left me nothing. He left you a choice, and me to help you make it. That's everything." Benjamin stared at Arthur's handwriting. "I chose wrong, then choose different now." Silence stretched between us. 46 years of this ranch's history. 32 years of Benjamin's life. All the choices that led to this moment. Outside, the Montana wind whispered through pines. A coyote called. Then different sounds. Engines. Multiple vehicles. Too loud for ranch trucks. I walked to the window. Headlights swept across the yard. A black Escalade. Nevada plates. 2 men climbing out. One was heavily built, maybe 40, covered in tattoos. Prison ink. Dead eyes. The other wore an expensive suit, absurdly out of place at a Montana ranch at 1 a.m. Slicked hair, designer watch. They walked toward the house with purpose. Men used to doors opening when they knocked. The tattooed one pounded 3 times. Hard. His voice came through the door, flat and cold. "We know Benjamin Fletcher is in there. Open up." I turned. Benjamin had gone white. His hands shook so badly the journal fell to the desk. "Who are they?" Benjamin's voice barely whispered. "The people I owe money to." The pounding came again. Harder. 3 heavy blows rattling the door. I should call Sheriff Hartley. That was smart. Safe. But I looked at Benjamin's face, absolute terror, and understood. This wasn't just about money. This was something worse. I took a breath. Walked to the door. Hand steady on the knob. "Dad, don't." I opened it. 2 men stood on Arthur's porch under the yellow light. Up close, even more dangerous than through the window. The tattooed one had dead eyes. Eyes that had seen things. Done things. The one in the suit smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. They looked at me, then past me at Benjamin frozen at the desk. Under the porch light of my father's house, I saw my son's future staring back. Dark, dangerous, and demanding payment. Wait. Before I tell you who walked through that door and why Amanda's face went white, comment family below if you're still here. Because this next reveal, it's going to rewrite everything. Quick disclaimer. Some details ahead are fictionalized for storytelling. If you'd rather skip it, now's your moment. But if you want the full, raw family story about dad revenge and redemption, don't go anywhere. I'd taught high school for 30 years. I'd faced angry parents threatening lawsuits, violent teenagers who thought they were invincible, hostile school board members determined to make my life hell. But the 2 men standing on Arthur's porch froze my blood in a way nothing else ever had. The tattooed one smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Scott Fletcher. "That's right. Shane Monroe. This is my brother Chase. We're here for Benjamin." Shane was maybe 35. Calm. Controlled. Clearly the brain of the operation. The tattoos covering his arms and neck told a story, prison ink gang affiliations, a life lived on the wrong side of every line. Chase was 32 and built like a linebacker, bigger than his brother, more volatile. The muscle. Benjamin Fletcher, Shane said pleasantly. We need to talk to him about a debt. Who are you? My business partners. Your son borrowed money from us. $180,000 to be exact. With interest and late fees, we're at $220,000 now. Benjamin appeared behind me, voice hollow. I don't have the money. The inheritance I lost. You know I lost. Chase laughed, cruel. Yeah, we read about your little court adventure. That's rough. But debt doesn't disappear just because you got cut out of Grandpa's will. You won't get anything from this ranch. Shane's smile widened. That's unfortunate. Because Benjamin signed a contract. Legal and binding. He owes us. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the sheriff. Shane didn't flinch. Go ahead. Contract's legal. High interest rates, sure. But legal in Nevada where it was signed. Your son borrowed voluntarily. We have every right to collect, Chase added. Could collect other ways, too. Nice ranch. Heard developers pay big money for land like this. The threat was clear. I was about to dial Sheriff Hartley when headlights swept across the yard. A car coming fast. Amanda's sedan screeched to a stop behind the Escalade. She jumped out, saw Shane and Chase, and her face went white. Oh God, no. She ran toward the porch. Shane, Chase, what are you doing here? I turned to her. You know them? Amanda hesitated. Looked at Benjamin, who was staring at her with growing horror. Then back at the two men on the porch. They're my brothers. The world tilted. Benjamin's voice was barely a whisper. What? Shane's smirk widened. Surprise brother-in-law? I was going to tell you, Amanda started. Your brothers are loan sharks, Benjamin's voice rose. Oh, loan sharks sounds harsh, Chase said. We prefer private lenders. Amanda's words tumbled out in a rush. Benjamin, listen to me. After we got married, you started gambling. It got worse and worse. I was so scared. I went to Shane, asked if he could help. He said he'd loan you money, family rates, to help you get back on your feet. Family rates, no, Benjamin's laugh was broken. They charged me 20% interest, Soaknil. That is family rates, Shane said calmly. Others get 25. Chase added, Plus, our baby sister told us you're Arthur Fletcher's grandson. Said you'd inherit millions in Montana land. Sounded like a safe investment. The pieces clicked together in my head. You set him up. She married him because he's Arthur Fletcher's grandson. No. Amanda was crying now. I loved him. I really loved him. But my family, they pressured me. Shane researched you. Benjamin knew about this ranch. He said, this is perfect. He inherits, you two are set, we all benefit. Family helps family, Shane said. That's how it works. You used me. Benjamin's voice was dead. They used both of us. Amanda turned to him desperately. After I told Shane about you, he offered the loan. The interest kept compounding. They kept saying, don't worry, Benjamin will inherit, keep playing, you'll win it back. They wanted you deeper in gambling, so the debt would balloon. How long? I asked. How long have you known the truth? Since right after we got married. I didn't know they'd loan him money. When they did, I thought they were helping. Then the terms changed. Interest skyrocketed. And they kept saying, when he inherits, we all get paid. Benjamin's voice broke. You've been lying to me for 3 years. I was trapped. If I told you, they'd hurt you. If I told them to stop, they'd hurt both of us. Touching, Shane said. But back to business. Benjamin owes us $220,000. Old man Fletcher changed the will. Benjamin has nothing. But Dad here just inherited $4 million. Seems like you can afford to help your son out. I won't pay his gambling debts. Chase stepped closer, threat radiating from every muscle. Then we'll take payment another way. More headlights. A truck this time pulling in fast. Sheriff Hartley's vehicle. I'd texted him before I opened the door. Smart preparation. Sheriff Hartley climbed out, full uniform, hand resting casually near his sidearm. Evening, Scott. Got your text about uninvited guests. Shane's demeanor changed instantly. Smooth. Professional. Evening, Sheriff. We're just here on legitimate business. Debt collection. Is that so? Sheriff Hartley's eyes were cold. You boys have collection licenses in Montana. So this is a private contract between We IDs, both of you, now. Shane and Chase exchanged a look, then handed over their Nevada driver's licenses. Sheriff Hartley walked back to his truck, ran them through his computer. His face changed. Well, well. Shane Monroe, Chase Monroe. You boys have interesting records. Gambling operations in 3 states. And what's this? He looked up. Active warrant in Nevada. Shane's jaw tightened. Looks like Las Vegas Metro Police wants to talk to you about some business dealings. Says here you're wanted for questioning in an illegal gambling ring. Shane's face went cold. This isn't over, Fletcher. Your son owes us. We'll be back. Chase leaned toward Benjamin. You better pray you find that money, because next time we won't be nice. Sheriff Hartley stepped between them. Next time you show up on this property without permission, I'm arresting you for criminal trespass. Now get gone before I decide to hold you for Nevada. The Monroe brothers climbed into their Escalade. The engine roared to life. They spun out, gravel, flying taillights disappearing down the ranch road. Amanda collapsed on the porch steps, sobbing. Benjamin just stood there staring at her like he didn't know who she was anymore. I looked at Sheriff Hartley. What just happened? You just met organized crime, Scott. And your son is in deeper trouble than just a gambling problem. Sheriff Hartley left after taking everyone's statements around 2:15 a.m. He paused at the door and said, "Get some sleep. We'll sort this out tomorrow." But no one slept. Scott, Benjamin, and Amanda remained in Arthur's living room as the Montana night dragged toward dawn, heavy with unspoken truths. Benjamin had not looked at Amanda since the sheriff's cruiser disappeared down the drive. She sat curled on the opposite couch, arms wrapped tightly around herself, her face drained of color under the lamplight. Benjamin finally spoke, his voice flat and hollow. How long have you been planning this, the marriage, the setup, all of it? Amanda lifted her head sharply. I didn't plan this, Benjamin. I swear. You have to believe me. Your brothers showed up here at 1 a.m. demanding money, he said, cutting her off. They knew about Grandpa, about the ranch, about the inheritance. You told them everything. I told my family I was dating someone. Amanda cried. That's all. Shane asked questions. He looked you up himself. You married me for money. I married you because I loved you. Scott raised his hand. Enough. Amanda, tell us everything. From the beginning, Amanda took a trembling breath. I met Benjamin at a conference in Seattle. Real estate and finance. I didn't know who he was. We dated. I fell in love. It was real. When I told my family, Shane asked about his last name. He said Morrison, no Fletcher. Isn't that the ranch in Montana? He searched online, found articles, photos, property values, millions. Shane said, this is perfect. You marry him, he inherits, everyone wins. Benjamin stood abruptly. And you agreed. I was 25, Amanda shouted back. I'd been trying to escape my brothers my entire life. They paid for my school by loaning me money. $40,000. They said if I married you, they'd forgive it. That's extortion, Scott said quietly. I didn't see it then. Amanda sobbed. I thought if I loved him anyway, and it helped my family too, what was the harm? She turned to Benjamin. Then you started gambling. You were stressed. Online poker. It spiraled. I panicked. I went to Shane. He said he'd help. The interest kept growing. You kept losing. Shane kept saying, when Arthur dies, Benjamin inherits. We get paid. Benjamin walked to the window, staring into the darkness. 3 years of lies. I was scared, Amanda said. Shane threatened you. He said I caused this and had to finish it. You watched me drown, Benjamin said without turning. I thought I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself. Scott had been silent, thinking. Amanda. How much do your brothers know about your finances? Everything. Because I looked into them, Scott said, opening a folder. Shane and Chase Monroe. Illegal gambling across multiple states. Loan sharking, money laundering. They're under federal investigation. Benjamin turned. What? Their lending business isn't licensed anywhere, Scott continued. Their interest rates are criminal. The contracts are worthless. Amanda's face went white. How do you know? I called a lawyer friend in Seattle. The FBI has been building a case for 2 years, Benjamin whispered. So the debt. Illegal, void. Then why aren't they arrested? Amanda asked. They need an insider, Scott said. Someone who understands the operation. Someone who can provide proof. He looked at her. Someone like you. They'll kill me, Amanda said. Or the FBI puts you in witness protection, Scott replied. You, Benjamin, and the baby. Benjamin snapped his head around. Baby? Amanda placed a hand on her stomach. I'm 9 weeks pregnant. The silence was complete. Scott continued calmly. Or you stay silent, and your brothers keep terrorizing you until someone gets hurt. They're my family, Amanda whispered. They're criminals who've exploited you since childhood, Scott said. That isn't family. What followed took 7 days. Amanda called the FBI the next morning. Agent Karen Wright flew to Montana that afternoon and sat with Amanda for 6 hours at Arthur's kitchen table while Benjamin and Scott waited. Amanda gave everything: text messages, payment records, bank accounts, names of other victims, and recordings. Dozens of phone calls she had secretly taped after Shane threatened to break Benjamin's hands. 3 days later, Shane and Chase Monroe were arrested in Las Vegas while boarding a flight to Mexico City. The charges were overwhelming RICO violations, illegal gambling across 5 states, laundering $2.3 million, witness intimidation, and loan sharking involving 47 victims. Agent Wright called Scott on the 4th day. They're in federal custody, facing 8 to 15 years. And Benjamin's debt, Scott asked. Void. Illegal from the start. And Amanda? No charges. She's a victim. Benjamin spoke to Amanda days later on Arthur's porch at sunset. Why testify against your brothers? They stopped being my family when they threatened you, Amanda said. And our daughter. Daughter. The ultrasound confirmed it. Benjamin sat silently, absorbing betrayal, truth, and fatherhood at once. I don't know if I can forgive you. I'm not asking for that yet, Amanda said. Just a chance to earn it. Benjamin looked at Scott. What do I do? Scott remembered Arthur's words. Forgiveness must be earned. She's trying, Scott said. The question is whether you'll let her. Benjamin studied Amanda. The woman he loved. The woman who lied. Both real. Okay, he said. You can try. I need time. I'll wait, Amanda said. They were broken, but together. And as dawn crept through Arthur's windows, it felt like a beginning. A week later, Philip called with different news. Philip Garrett's voice came through the phone, tight with frustration. Scott, I need you to sit down for this. Scott was at the ranch repairing the north fence, the same one Arthur had written about in his journal. He set his hammer down. What happened? Benjamin hired a new lawyer, Allison Drake from Seattle. Sharp, expensive, and she just filed a notice of appeal. Scott froze. Appeal. The case is closed. Judge Merrick ruled the will valid. They're claiming new evidence, alleged oral promises Arthur made to Benjamin. They have a witness. Scott drove straight to Billings and met Philip at his office. Philip slid the filing across the desk. The claim argued that in 2018, Arthur verbally promised the ranch to Benjamin. The witness was listed as Lester Wade, a former ranch hand. The filing cited Montana precedent allowing oral promises to challenge a written will if proven. Scott recognized the name immediately. Arthur fired Lester in 2018 for stealing diesel fuel. I know, Philip said, but we still have to answer. The hearing is tomorrow morning. Park County Courthouse was packed again. Judge Merrick entered, clearly irritated. Why are we here again? Allison Drake stood. She was polished, confident, and calm. Your Honor, new evidence has emerged regarding the true intentions of the deceased. It had better be compelling, the judge said. I don't enjoy relitigating settled matters. Allison called her witness. The petitioner calls Lester Wade. Lester took the stand, mid-50s, weathered, visibly nervous. I worked at Fletcher Ranch from May to September 2018. Did you ever hear Arthur Fletcher discuss estate plans with his grandson, Benjamin? Allison asked. Yes, Lester said. Summer of 2018. I was in the horse barn. Arthur told Benjamin, this ranch will be yours. I'm building it for family. You're my family. A murmur rippled through the gallery. You're certain? Allison asked. Clear as day. Philip rose for cross-examination. Mr. Wade, when were you terminated from Fletcher Ranch? September 2018. And why? There was a misunderstanding. Philip produced documents. You were fired for stealing 200 gallons of diesel fuel and selling it to a trucking company. Charges were filed. They were later dropped after restitution and a plea agreement barring you from agricultural employment. Correct? Yes. So you're testifying against the man who showed you mercy on behalf of the grandson. Interesting. Lester shifted. When did Benjamin contact you? Last week. What did he offer you? Allison objected. Speculation. I'll allow it, Judge Merrick said. He said I'd get $5,000 if the will was overturned. The courtroom erupted. Judge Merrick leaned forward. You were promised money to testify, only if he won. That is witness tampering, the judge said sharply. Ms. Drake. Allison looked stunned. Your Honor, I had no knowledge of any payment. I believe you, the judge replied. But this witness is completely impeached. Proceed. Allison regrouped. We call our second witness Amanda Fletcher. The judge sighed. Very well. Amanda took the stand, visibly shaken, tears already forming. Mrs. Fletcher, were you present at your wedding in December 2015? Yes. Was Arthur Fletcher there? Yes. Did you observe Arthur having a private conversation with Benjamin? Yes. In the garden area. It was emotional. Benjamin told me afterward that Arthur promised him the ranch as his legacy. Benjamin stared at the floor. Scott understood immediately. Benjamin had coached her. This was perjury. Philip approached slowly. Mrs. Fletcher, you said this occurred near a garden. Yes, near a stable-style building. The wedding was held at the Riverside Hotel in downtown Seattle, Philip said. There was no stable. Amanda faltered. I meant the garden. And you said they walked together. Yes. My father was in a wheelchair that entire year, Scott said, standing. Severe arthritis. He could not walk. Philip displayed wedding photos. Arthur sat in a wheelchair at his table, in every image Scott beside him the entire night. Arthur never moved. Judge Merrick's expression darkened. Mrs. Fletcher, did you just lie under oath? Amanda broke down. I didn't want to. Benjamin told me what to say. He wrote it down. I was scared. Benjamin stood abruptly. This is my fault. I told her to do it. You suborned perjury, the judge said. Do you understand that's a felony? Yes. And Mr. Wade accepted money for false testimony, the judge continued. Both of you face serious consequences. Allison spoke quickly. Your Honor, I had no knowledge. I believe you, the judge said. Your reputation stands. Your client's does not. I am referring this matter for prosecution, he continued. Perjury, witness tampering, fraud upon the court. Amanda cried. Please. I'm 8 months pregnant. The judge paused, studying her, then Benjamin. Mr. Fletcher, anything to say? It's all on me, Benjamin said. They didn't want to lie. I pressured them. If anyone should be punished, it's me. Judge Merrick turned to Scott. You're the injured party. What would your father say? Scott remembered Arthur's journal. He'd say family is worth fighting for, even when they fail. You're asking for leniency. I'm asking you to give my son the chance my father gave me. The courtroom was silent. Judge Merrick leaned back. I do not tolerate perjury, but I recognize desperation when I see it. I will not refer this matter for criminal charges. Amanda collapsed in relief. But consequences remain. 200 hours of community service each. Permanent prohibition from contesting this estate again. One more filing, and I will prosecute. The estate is confirmed. Closed. Scott Fletcher is the sole heir. He struck the gavel. Court adjourned. Outside, Benjamin faced Scott, eyes red. I'm sorry, Dad. For everything. I know. Can you forgive me? Scott studied his son. Not today. Ask me again in a year. Benjamin nodded. The legal battle was over. The harder work had just begun. 3 days after the final hearing, Scott pulled into Fletcher Ranch at 6 a.m. and found Benjamin's truck already parked in the driveway. His son stood on the porch with 2 cups of coffee, wearing jeans boots and a faded work jacket. Scott climbed out of his truck slowly. What are you doing here? Benjamin held out one of the cups. You offered me a job, $15 an hour. I'm here to work. Scott took the coffee but didn't drink. I figured after everything that happened, the hearings, the perjury, I lost Dad. Benjamin's voice was steady. I lost the legal fight. I lost my dignity. I almost lost Amanda and the baby. The only thing I haven't lost is the chance you gave me. And I don't want to lose that too. Scott studied his son, dark circles under his eyes, weight loss visible even through the jacket, but a determination in his posture that hadn't been there before. All right then, let's get to work. The first 6 weeks were brutal. Benjamin learned ranch work from absolute zero. He mucked stalls with soft hands that blistered by noon. He fed cattle before dawn in temperatures that dropped to single digits. He repaired fences in the bitter Montana January cold, his fingers numb even through work gloves. He learned to drive the tractor and stalled it 4 times on the first day. At first, he was terrible at everything. A cow kicked him into the mud. He dropped tools. He couldn't tie a proper knot to save his life. But every morning, he showed up at 6. No complaints. Never quit. Scott watched without saying much. He corrected Benjamin when necessary, but mostly let him figure things out. The work would teach him, or it wouldn't. Words couldn't do what blisters and cold mornings could. By mid-February, Benjamin's hands had calluses. He could feed the herd in 40 minutes instead of 2 hours. He no longer flinched when a cow walked past him. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. The fence line ran along the north pasture, the same section Arthur had written about in his journal. One morning in late February, the air so cold their breath turned to smoke, they were replacing a rotted post. Benjamin worked the post hole digger, fighting Montana's frozen ground. 20 inches down, the digger hit stone with a jarring clang. Damn it! Benjamin tried again, same angle, same result. The rock wouldn't budge. Can't dig through this. The rock's too big, can't get around it. Frustrated, he threw the digger down. Scott walked over from the truck bed, picked up the digger without a word, and moved 3 inches to the left. He dug straight down, clean, smooth, no rock. Benjamin stared. How did you? The rock runs 3 inches to the left, Scott said, handing the digger back. Sometimes the problem isn't digging harder. It's digging smarter. Benjamin looked at the clean hole, then at his father. Understanding dawned slowly. This wasn't just about the fence. This was about life. About approach. Strategy over brute force. Benjamin took the digger, adjusted his angle, and dug the next hole perfectly. They worked in comfortable silence, shoulder to shoulder, the way Arthur had described in his journal. An hour passed. The fence was done. They sat on the truck bed, drinking water, the sun climbing higher. Benjamin broke the silence. "Dad, why are you doing all this, paying my legal fees, giving me this job, protecting me in court? I tried to destroy you." Scott looked out at the Montana landscape, the mountains, the sky, the land his father had built. "You want the truth?" "Yes." Scott took a breath. "Because my father did the same thing for me." Benjamin's head turned sharply. "What do you mean?" Scott set down his water bottle. The sun was warm now, melting the frost on the fence posts. "I'm about to tell you a story I've never told anyone except your mother." Benjamin leaned forward, listening. The Montana wind went quiet. The cattle grazed in the distance, and Scott Fletcher began telling his son about the worst mistake of his life and the mercy that saved him. "When I was 26 years old, I got a woman pregnant. 6 weeks into ranch work, mid-February 2025. Montana winter at its harshest, Scott and Benjamin sat on the truck bed watching the sun sink behind the mountains, painting the snow and peaks in orange and purple. Benjamin finally asked the question he had been holding back for weeks. "Why are you doing this?" Scott knew it was time to tell the truth. "When I was 26, Scott began, I was dating a woman before I met your mother. We'd broken up but stayed in touch. One night, we made a mistake. She got pregnant." Benjamin stayed quiet, listening. "She didn't want the baby. Neither did I. We were young, scared, and unprepared. She had an abortion. I paid for it. We agreed we'd never tell anyone. I carried that secret for 3 years. When I met your mother at 29, I fell in love. Real love. Before I proposed, I told her. I couldn't build a marriage on a lie. Your mother cried, not because she judged me, but because she saw the guilt I was carrying. She said, 'Scott, you made a hard choice, but you faced it. That matters.' But I couldn't forgive myself," Scott admitted. "I felt like I'd killed something that could have existed. When I finally told your grandfather you were about 2, he said something I never forgot." Benjamin leaned forward. "What did he say?" "He said, 'We all make choices we regret. The question is whether you let them define you or teach you.' Then he said, 'You can't change the past, but you can let it make you a better man. Honor the life you didn't have by living yours well.' So I did. I became the best husband I could be to your mother, the best father I could be to you. Every day I tried to live up to the forgiveness she gave me." Benjamin thought for a long moment. "Did Mom ever regret forgiving you?" "I asked her once," Scott said. "She told me, 'I didn't forgive you for what you did. I forgave you for the man you became afterward.'" Scott turned to his son. "You think I don't understand guilt, shame feeling trapped by your own choices? I've been there. I know what it's like to need redemption and not know if you deserve it." Benjamin swallowed. "But you earned it." "I don't know if I can." "You can," Scott said. "How do you know?" "Because you're here. You showed up. That's the first step. And you keep showing up every day until it stops being something you do and becomes who you are." "The stars began to appear," Benjamin asked quietly. "How long until you forgive me?" Scott took his time. "I can't forgive you today. What you did hurt too much. You tried to ruin me legally and mentally. You broke into Grandpa's house. You made your wife lie under oath. I can't hand you forgiveness after 6 weeks." Benjamin nodded, tears forming. "But forgiveness can be earned," Scott continued. "Every honest day here. Every choice of work over schemes. Every time you become the man Grandpa believed you could be, that's how. How long will it take? I don't know. Months. Years. That's up to you. And if I never deserve it, then at least you tried." Benjamin nodded. "Then I'll try. Every day." They finished the fence as night fell. Benjamin's hands bled through broken blisters, but he didn't quit. The fence stood straight and strong. "Good work," Scott said. "Thanks, Dad." They drove home in separate trucks, but felt less alone. October 2025. 1 year later. The seasons had turned full circle. Autumn painted the mountains gold and rust over evergreen. Scott Fletcher stood on the ranch porch at dawn, coffee warming his hands, looking out over the land his father built and his son had learned to respect. The winter of 2024 to 2025 had been unforgiving. Benjamin learned the basics the hard way through bitter cold and exhaustion, but he showed up every day. Spring brought calving season. Benjamin helped deliver 47 calves, holding the lantern the same way he had as a 9-year-old boy. Summer meant long days managing cattle beside the ranch hands, his skin darkened by the sun, his hands calloused and steady. Now it was autumn again, harvest time. Benjamin ran machinery like someone who belonged there, no longer a city man pretending. Every Tuesday night for 52 weeks, he attended Gamblers Anonymous meetings in Billings. He never missed one. Benjamin had paid back $31,200 of the $45,000 in legal fees. The math was simple: $15 an hour, 40 hours a week for a full year. He still owed $13,800. 11 more months. Amanda earned her real estate license and worked from an office in the ranch house. She built an honest reputation in Park County deal by deal. Shane and Chase Monroe were serving 12-year federal sentences. And then there was Emma. Emma Fletcher was born on January 15, 2025, exactly 1 year after Arthur's death. Now 9 months old, she crawled everywhere, laughed at the chickens, and loved the ranch without needing to understand why. That October morning was clear and bright. Benjamin's truck pulled in, but instead of heading to the barn, he walked onto the porch with a cup of coffee and sat beside Scott. "No work today?" Scott asked. "I need to talk to you," Benjamin said. Scott's chest tightened. Something wrong. "I got an offer." Scott waited. "My old firm in Seattle, senior partner, $250,000 a year." Scott exhaled slowly. "That's a big opportunity. I could pay off everything fast. Give Amanda and Emma an easy life." And Scott asked. "I turned it down." Scott looked at him. "Why?" "Because I'm not that man anymore," Benjamin said. "The one who chased money and shortcuts. Grandpa didn't leave me the ranch because I wasn't ready. I didn't deserve it then, but now I'm becoming someone who might." He hesitated. "So I wanted to ask if you'd teach me how to actually run this place. The business, the planning. Not as a worker, as a partner. And someday, if I earn it, as the next generation." Scott studied him. The change was undeniable: physically stronger, mentally steady, spiritually present. "Arthur's gamble had worked. Your grandfather left me the ranch," Scott said. "But he left you a choice." Benjamin leaned in. "Redemption or resentment? You chose redemption." Scott nodded. "Partners? 50-50? Benjamin's eyes filled. "You mean it. You'll learn while I handle operations. When you're ready, it becomes yours. Not because you inherited it, because you earned it." They shook hands equal, then hugged the first real hug in years. Later, Scott stood by Arthur's grave beneath the cottonwood tree and read the final journal entry aloud. When he finished, he smiled. "He earned it, Dad." The wind rustled the leaves. Scott walked back toward the house. Benjamin sat on the porch, showing Emma how to touch a chicken egg. Amanda watched, smiling, one hand on her belly. She was pregnant again. 4 generations. The ranch endured, and Arthur Fletcher's hardest bet had finally paid off, not in land, but in the man who learned to deserve it. And to you, listening to this story, remember this. I never thought I'd be the kind of dad telling a family story about revenge. But here we are. When my father Arthur changed that will, I thought it was the cruelest thing he could do to Benjamin. I was wrong. It was the most loving. God gave me 3 chances to see the truth. First, when Arthur died, and left me everything I didn't understand why. Second, when Benjamin attacked me in court and at the airport, I wanted to fight back, but something held me. Third, when I sat on that porch and told my son about my own failures, that's when God whispered, "Mercy isn't weakness, it's strength." This family story taught me that a dad's revenge isn't about destroying your child when they betray you. Real dad revenge, the kind that changes lives, is refusing to let them destroy themselves. It's saying, "I won't give up on you even when you've given up on yourself. Don't be like me." Don't wait for a funeral and a courtroom battle to learn that forgiveness is something you build brick by brick, fence post by fence post, day by painful day. Start now, because the people you love won't wait forever. My father's dad revenge wasn't punishment, it was redemption. And thank God he was right. If this family story moved you, if you've ever wondered whether dad revenge could actually be love in disguise, drop a comment below. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to this channel, because the stories we tell next will challenge you, inspire you, and maybe even change how you see your own family story. Thank you for staying until the end. And a fair warning, the stories ahead contain fictional elements created for educational purposes. If this isn't for you, feel free to exit and find content that suits you better. But if you're ready for more truth wrapped in story, I'll see you in the next one.